Good evening, good evening, good evening. We're so excited just to be back one more time, that we can study the Word of God and try to allow some man, woman, boy, or girl's life to be changed with the Word of God. We're going to await on everybody to get on. We're going to wait on everybody to get on, and then we will be ready to start. We're going to await everybody to get on, and then we'll be ready to start. All right. We're waiting on all of those to come on, and then we'll be ready to start. I'm early tonight. I just noticed that. I'm 3 minutes early. Hey, Mom is already on. Lily is on now. I'm going to go ahead and get started because I don't know if... Hey, Suzanne. Hello, Suzanne. I said I wasn't going to go live tonight, but I had a few people to kind of interest me in going live tonight. So I said I wasn't going to go live, but a few people have talked me into it. Hello, Miss Victoria Stampley. All right, I'll go ahead and get started because everybody else who's going to watch, they can catch it in delayed viewing. All right. So good evening to everybody who's on here. Oh, now everybody's popping on. Hey, Melissa. Hey, Dianthony. Hello. All right. We're going to go ahead and get started. Tonight it will be very simple. Very simple tonight. Tonight I want to talk to you about God is not concerned with your resume. All right, that's what I'm going to talk about. God is not concerned with your resume. It would make sense to the tangible or to the sensible nature of mankind that if God is ever going to get us to a level of prosperity or a level of success, or a time of blessings, then it would seem like we would see the steps coming. We would see his plans leading us slowly but surely. It's just like a flower growing. You don't get the bloom until you see the bud coming up out of the ground. And when you see the bud, it's a process until the flower opens up the bloom, opens up the bud and begins to bloom. Well, God is not like that. God don't have to do that all the time. All right. God can take you being on drugs out of the street and make you prosper. God can take you without a formal college education and place you in a top supervisory position on a job. God can take you from being in an apartment making $8 an hour and put you in a position of authority or bring some things within your reach to let you attain, hey Tara, to let you attain just to show the devil that God does not have to play by his rules. When God gets ready to bless you, you don't have to have a master's degree. You don't have to have a high credit score. You don't have to have the formal qualifications or training. God doesn't always make you taller so you can reach the top branch, but sometimes he'll bring the top branch down to your level. God is not concerned when you come to God and ask and expect God to bless you and expect God to take you to higher heights and deeper depths. God is not concerned about who's qualified. God is not concerned about when you ask ask him for the house, when you ask him for the car, God is not concerned about how much money you make on your job. If you have children, God is not concerned about whether that father stayed with you to raise the children or not. God all the time doesn't allow you to see the financial intake just to blow your mind and bring some things within your reach. If you can think back, there is a lot God has brought within your reach that your finances said no to, but God obviously said yes. There was no way you should be able to afford a car and a house at the same time on the income that you were getting in. Folk who have been working longer than you are still renting, and God has made you own. You've got to look. God is not concerned about the things that qualify you for the blessing. The only thing that qualifies you to get what you're asking him for is your faith. If you can ever have crazy faith when being broke, if you can ever have crazy faith when you're sick, if you can ever have crazy faith when you're a single parent, if you can have crazy faith when you have a low credit score, there will be some things that God will allow to drop out of heaven that credit score just can't secure. If you can ever get crazy faith, God will bring some things within your reach, and you've never stepped foot on a college campus before. You are trying to wrap your mind around how to tangibly obtain those things that you expect God to give you. But if you can ever get that out of your head, God will make you prosper when you don't even qualify. I've got to move to the meat of this message. There was a man by the name of Paul, and when Paul became an apostle, Paul began to describe himself like this. He said, "Am I not the least of the apostles?" Hey, Dianthony. He said, "Am I not the least of the apostles?" In other words, Paul understood, I have nobody supporting me. I have nobody believing in me. He said, the folk I used to run with are mad with me because I've been redeemed. I have been transformed into Christianity. So Paul said, I don't have my old running mates who are my now friends. And then I don't have the church to believe in me, because remember Ananias said, God, if you're going to send me down there where Paul is, then I don't really believe this is you, because don't you realize this is the same man? You want me to go and lay hands on the same man who began to persecute the church. You want me to go down there by Damascus and lay hands on the same man who was trying to take the church out? Are you sure you want me to do that? Paul began to talk about it. He said, although I realize you don't want to hear what I'm about to say, he said, I'm the least of the apostles. Nobody in my previous life wants to deal with me, and nobody in my changed life wants to deal with me. Paul said, but now when you look at it, the 2/3 of the New Testament are written by Paul, but nobody believed in Paul. Nobody looked at Paul and revered him. Nobody wanted to listen to Paul. Nobody believed that God would use Paul because his past was stained and tainted with persecution of the church. But God uses who he will. And I want to stop by to tell you, I don't care how long you've been in your sin. I don't care how much it took God, how much time it took God to allow you to be patient with you, to make sure you turn from your wicked ways. I don't care how many folk husbands you done slept with. I don't care how many wives you done slept with. I don't care how many nights you stayed out all night long. I don't care how many of your children whose father you weren't married to. I don't care how many folk know your deepest, darkest secret. When God gets ready to bless you, he's not concerned about references. He's not concerned about how many folk are willing to say, God, I believe in them. He's not concerned about your past work history. He's not concerned about where you last worked at. What was your last job title? When your season comes, I don't care if you have no references who's willing to speak up for you. I don't care if you have no previous job history that they say, God, I believe that they'll do good. God is not concerned about who don't believe in you. If you've got to stand up like Paul to say, I'm the least of the apostles. If you've got to stand up like Paul to say, before I change my life, those folk who claim to be my friend, they no longer want to deal with me. And now, since I've truly changed my life, nobody in the church believes in me because they heard my reputation before I got there. Sometimes you're going to have to be like Paul to say, I'm the least of the blessed. I'm the least of the called. I'm the least of the church folk. I'm the least of the apostles. I'm the least of the nurses. I'm the least of the teachers. I'm the least of the janitors, the least of my siblings. But I don't care if you're the least. Paul was the least when he was living, but he's the greatest when the Bible was recorded. God can make you prosper. God can make you be ahead. You've got to understand, you've got to stop looking at yourself and thinking you are a failure just because you don't have a college degree. You've got to stop looking at yourself and thinking you are a failure just because you're not married to your children's father. You've got to stop looking at yourself and thinking you are a failure just because you suffer and struggle with homosexuality, and you struggle with pornography, and you struggle with trying to give up the drink, and you struggle because you're trying to stop sleeping around. It does not matter what your resume says. When God gets ready to bless you, if you can ever get your sight off of your resume and put your sight on your faith and get your faith to the level that it should be at, God will bless you in the front of every person that wouldn't be your reference. God will bless you in front of every person that ever looked down on you. God will bless you even if you still making minimum wage. God will bless you even if you were driving in the car, in the broke down car, and had to rent all these years. When your season comes, don't come in the presence of God and think that your resume is going to get you blessed. It doesn't matter if you have a doctoral degree. It doesn't matter whether you the CEO. It doesn't matter whether you the DON. If you don't have sufficient faith, God cannot release what you've been expecting. But if you have the proper faith without the proper education, if you got the proper faith without a down payment, if you've got the proper faith without the credit score, if you've got the proper faith without the certification, if you've got the proper faith without the qualification, if you've got the proper faith without the support, if you've got the proper faith without folk believing in you, if you've got the proper faith with no resume, God can still open up the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing that you will not have room enough to receive. There are some folk who don't have a degree that's blessed. There are some folk who don't have a qualification, but God has blessed them not to live paycheck to paycheck. It does not matter what your resume says. When God gets ready to elevate you, when God gets ready, see, I've got to change the mind of some parents. See, parents like to hold on the pedestal some children who have a degree versus their children who don't. Some parents like to brag on their children, the ones who have a good job versus the ones who don't. Some parents like to put folk on the pedestal about where they live, and the other ones don't live somewhere. But let me tell you something, parents. If your child don't have but a high school diploma, When you get old, they still your children. I don't care if you think they're an embarrassment now. God can turn their life around at a moment's notice. Don't give up on your children just because they struggle with promiscuity. Don't give up on your children just because they've been to jail. I don't care whether one of your children never gave you trouble. Do not put one of your children on a higher pedestal than the rest of your children. Because at the end of the day, remember now, Jesse put his 7 children up on a pedestal and did not put David on the pedestal. But when the water boiled down, David became the king. David became the king. And guess what? It was then Jesse wanted to brag. Y'all heard about my son David? He the king now. But you didn't want to say that when I was not king. You didn't want to say that when I didn't have the good job. You didn't want to say that when I couldn't buy you a good Mother's Day gift. You didn't want to say that when I couldn't take you to the restaurant. You didn't want to say that when I couldn't come home to buy you what my siblings could buy you. But when God made me king, you forgot about every one of the rest of them that you put on a pedestal, and now your attention shifted to David. There are some folk who will never see your goodness. There are some folk who will never see your identity. There are some folk who will never see your giftedness until God reveals your gift. But let me tell you something. Those folk who don't love you when you're broke, those folk who don't love you when you can't buy them a gift, those folk who don't love you, they put everybody else on the pedestal. You've got to learn, if I don't make but $8, I'm a child of God. If I don't do nothing but rent a 1-bedroom shack, I'm a child of God. If I can't do nothing but wear the same clothes every week, I'm still a child of God. You're embarrassed about somebody that's still a child of God? My brothers and my sisters, let me leave you with this. We know where we've been, but we don't know where we're going. You got to stop putting certain folk on a pedestal because of their curriculum vitae, because of their resume. I don't give a darn where you work. I don't care what you drive. I don't care what degree you have. I don't care how much money you have in the bank. Because if God calls you home tonight, you can't take none of that with you. I'm still a child of God. Whether I got to shop in Walmart and wear their jeans, I'm still a child of God. Whether I'm eating off of plastic and not China, whatever they call that, Chinette, I'm still the child of God. If I've got to live paycheck to paycheck, I'm still a child of God. If I'm not paying as much tithes as you pay, I'm still a child of God. If I've got to come home and drop out of college just to keep my children, I'm still a child of God. And just because you're embarrassed about my resume, it doesn't make me embarrassed about who God has allowed me to be. Because when I die, I just want God to be pleased. And those of you who are watching this video, the problem with some of you is you waiting on folk to say how proud of you they are. You waiting on folk to say how grateful they are. You waiting on folk to say, let me tell you how good you've been to me. But if you're confident and you're not doing your good deeds to be seen, then you're not concerned about who pats you on the back. You just concerned about pleasing God. And when you please God, it's not going to go on your resume. When you please God, it's not going to go on your resume. It's going to go on the Lamb's Book of Life. And that book is not going to be open until Judgment Day. So don't be concerned about what's on your resume. Be concerned about what he's going to open and it will be in the book of life. Because what's on your resume dies when you die. I don't care how good of a teacher you are right now. I don't care how good of a principal you are right now. I don't care how good of a nurse you are right now. I don't care how good of a doctor you are right now. Times are always changing, and what you're good in today, 20 years from now, your expertise is going to be old. But when I store my treasures in heaven and my deeds go in the Lamb's book of life, they never get old. If God delays his coming for 2,000 years, my deeds are still going to be good in the Lamb's book of life. That's what I want to tell you tonight. So dust yourself off of every hurt. Dust yourself off of every person that looked over you. Dust yourself off because your mom did not put you on the pedestal equivalent to the rest of them. Dust yourself off because every one of your siblings went to college except you. Dust yourself off because folk have always wanted you to feel bad about who you are. Today, I want to speak self-esteem into your life and be proud of who you are without the degree, without money in the bank, without being the lender, without staying in a big house, without staying in a good neighborhood, without driving a BMW, a Mercedes-Benz, a Jaguar, a Bugatti, or whatever they call it. Be proud of who you are, because when you're proud of who you are, God says, if you be faithful over a few things, I'll make you ruler over many. No, they may not ever want to have the gathering at your house because your house is deemed the small house. They may not ever want to have the party for mama at your house because your house is considered the old-fashioned, outdated house. But the problem is, you should be grateful over the house God has allowed you to have. It doesn't matter whether the cabinets are outdated. It doesn't matter whether the roof, it may be leaking in certain places. The house God gave you, be proud of what he's blessed you with. Don't ever let somebody else's blessing make you feel bad about where you are in life. If I'm a CNA, I'm going to be a CNA. If I'm a janitor, I'm going to be a janitor. If I'm a cafeteria worker, I'm going to be the cafeteria worker. If I'm unemployed, I'm just unemployed. If I'm on disability, I'm just on disability. But I be darned if you make me feel bad about who God has made me to be. Because the problem is, I'm only in that position temporarily until God decides he wants to elevate me. See, nobody wants to tell them folk what their child do when you're a janitor. Nobody wants to brag on their child when you just a teacher's assistant. They wait until you get heightened and elevated. But the problem is, I'm proud of my child, whether you a CNA or RN. I'm proud of my child, whether you a janitor or whether you the principal. I'm proud of my child, whether you the cafeteria worker or whether you the administrator over a nursing home. I'm proud of my child. And that's the way I want you to be. If you have nobody else who's proud of you, be proud of yourself. This has been your word tonight from Dr. Gerard Botley Ministries. I pray that you have been blessed significantly. Share this message with somebody and tell them, be proud of who you are. God bless you.